Welcome to the University of Chicago Public Policy Podcasts. This is UC3P, our eponymously named podcast on policy, politics, and current affairs. My name is David Raban, and I'm the production manager for what we like to call the main page. Today, we're back with our finale for Season 4 of UC3P, the main page. In this episode, you'll hear assistant production managers Olu Ogidan and Sowmya Karun interview me. It's all about UC3P, how we got started, and my journey in this wonderful organization. Along the way, you'll hear from UC3P podcasters across the years, as well as a very special guest in the final segment. No notes today, so let's get straight into the interview. Without further ado, it's me, David Raban.
Welcome to UC3P, the U Chicago Public Policy Podcasts. My name is Sowmya Karun.
And my name is Olu Ogidan.
And we're here today with our last episode of this academic year with a very special guest, soon-to-be lawyer, friend, leader, and founder of U Chicago Public Policy Podcasts, David. David, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
When you started, UC3P didn't exist, just a ragtag bunch of students who liked policy and podcasts. I remember you telling me the story. Today, it's a registered student organization. So many people across the university. We have our own state-of-the-art recording studio, hundreds of episodes. I think it's been wonderful, and I'm really curious to know, why podcasting? Why not pottery, for instance?
Well, thank you again for having me. I have to just say, I'm a little nervous about doing something like this. It feels strange to me when you're usually the person who asks the questions, or you're the person who's helping other students figure out how to do things, and then you become the subject of the interview. Is always a strange place for someone, I think, who's practicing journalism to be. I'm not sure about, hundreds of podcasts. I think we've done close to 125 or 150 total. But in any case, and also state-of-the-art studio. I'm not sure. We try and make it sound good, but I have to tell you, these wires are taped up in these ways that they make me nervous.
But coming from nothing.
Coming from nothing. That's right. Can you ask the question one more time?
Sure. So when you started, UC3P didn't exist. It was a bunch of kids who liked policy and podcasts. Today, it's a registered student organization, students from across the University of Chicago, about 150 different episodes, our very own recording studio. You built this up, and that just makes me wonder, why did you pick podcasting? And, why not anything else? Like gardening, for instance.
Why not pottery? Why not gardening? I'm not sure. I mean, I have to say, when I started and I had played violin and viola for about 13, 14 years, something around that amount of time. And then when I got to college, I stopped. But I still always loved music, and I had been going to a lot of music festivals, and I had been going to concerts since I was in about 9th grade. So I always loved audio, and in the car when I was growing up, my mom would always play NPR, and we would always listen to things like, I'm from LA, so we'd listen to K-Day, hip hop music. We would listen to NPR. There's 2 NPR stations in Los Angeles. And I ended up kind of getting into DJing in my 3rd year when I was studying abroad in London. And when I came home, I had my own car for the first time that I really was able to drive, and I brought it with me to college and all that stuff. And I would listen to the radio all the time, and I found myself just thinking, honestly, I really hated commercials. It's strange how something as small as you don't like listening to advertisements, or it feels fake, makes you really think about, okay, well, what am I listening to that doesn't have that? And it was public radio. And so I was just listening to more and more of that, and I was really lucky because the LA stations, KPCC, had phenomenal just journalism and different kind of radio shows, and the other station in Los Angeles, KCRW, had so much phenomenal music, and I just have always loved music my entire life. So when I got back to college, I ended up doing my college radio, and I guess it kind of just all goes from there, where I was doing music there. But then by the time I wanted to graduate, I thought to myself, well, I want to go and work in the law, and also I want to, I want to work in public radio. And I ended up doing both those things after graduation. So I ended up doing an apprenticeship with KPCC, and we were working on kind of more like interview radio, which was not something I had a lot of familiarity with. And the long story short is I did that for a year. I loved it. I brought it to graduate school, and I've been really happy that I did that ever since.
Kind of on that note, a little bit, we have a question coming in from a former podcaster. You might recognize this voice.
Hi, David. This is Sid Ramakrishna from the Harris MPP class of 2019. What advice would you have for other student-led media organizations to achieve the growth and exposure that UC3P did?
Wow. Well, I'm so happy to hear back from Sid. Sid was in our second year of podcasting, and Sid and I worked together for 2 years. Sid put out a phenomenal list of podcasts, series of podcasts. He put out 3 episodes on a recording that he did with Laura Haim. He did an interview with Harry Le Rosselier, who is the mayor of Plano, Texas. And just every time I talked to Sid, it was really exciting, and I could tell he was really excited about it. And this is the really cool thing about UC3P, is that you just make friends. And I remember Sid and I would be having just conversations about like life. You know, we would be talking about politics, and we would disagree fervently about things. And that was what was really excited about it. At that time, we would have these meetings on Saturday mornings. And we would have a Saturday morning meeting, you know, every other week or once a month or whatever. And we would bring pizza, and we would all come in on Saturday, and it was just the people who really cared about podcasting. There was only, you know, even at that time, 15, 25 of us or something like that. Not everyone would show up all the time, mainly first years, because second years couldn't be bothered to, for the most part, come on through. And it was just a really fresh organization. We had a startup mentality. To answer Sid's question, I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I know a few things. Like, I know one of the secrets of our success has been process. And every step of the way, when someone tells us no, we try and figure out, okay, well, how can we do this? You know, process. Like, how do you, in everything that you do, treat people with respect? Process. How do you understand that you need to build something that you end up transmitting to other people? Process and structure. You know, that's what that last one was really about, that you build an organization and you use the structure of that organization to help people. And I'll just say this much. I know people find it to be very boring, and they always are confused why I bring this up all the time, but I'll bring it up anyway, which is we have changed our bylaws about 6 or 7 times through the history of UC3P. And I know that, again, that may not seem important to other people, but changing your bylaws is like changing the constitution of the organization. And every time we've done it, we've taken what we've learned from every year, and it's just been critically important. So, for example, we didn't used to have production managers because we didn't even have multiple podcasts. So it didn't even make any sense. But then as we grew, we adopted and were flexible. And then we took those lessons and we brought them into essentially what's the charter of the organization. And so this year we made some really, really big changes. We adopted dispute resolution processes. We adopted bylaws and regular voting amendment processes. And again, that stuff, it may not seem important, but it's critical for the well-functioning of an organization.
So keeping on the topic of student organizations, what are your hopes for UC3P? Where do you think it's going to go? Where would you like it to go?
I think there's 2 or 3 things I'd really like to see. The first thing I'd like to see is that we do a really good job with training and recruitment. And that means when we start the year, we do a very good job of telling people and communicating to them, this is an important organization. This will be important for your development. It's important for the public. And also we'll all have fun. The second thing is making sure within that we get people trained and that we get them onto teams and they know exactly what they need to know about the well-functioning of the organization. And that if we do that right, that sets us up every year. And that's something we have to do every year. That's something that I hope we get that process down. And some years we won't be as successful at it. But if we do the rest of the stuff we do in the year, then we will actually make that like as successful as it could possibly be, as consistently as it could possibly be. The second thing is I really want to make sure that everyone gets what they want to get out of the organization. I really want to make sure that students who come in are thinking to themselves, I want to learn how to edit. And then they learn how to edit. And people who want to learn how to interview learn how to interview. And people who want to learn all the things that make one an excellent podcaster learn how to do those things. And that when they leave the organization, whether it's after 6 months or a year or 2 years or whatever, I really want to make sure that they can look back on it and say, wow, that was one of the best times I had when I was in college or in graduate school, and that it really gave me what I needed to move on to the next level. And I would like more listeners.
I mean, who wouldn't? Something that you said about people getting out of the organization, what they want to get out of it, rings really true for me personally. I think that I've learned better ways of, one, managing myself and managing my general anxieties about life and whatnot, but also I've learned some hard skills. Like I know how to edit now, and I know how to think of a script through a story. And thank you. That's because you took the time to teach me and teach us like how to do those things. But now that we're done talking a little bit about the student organization, we definitely want to talk a little bit more just about you.
So to begin with, we have a recorded question for you from a former UC3P.
My favorite memory of David? I think it would have to be any time we were trying to set up for a live event, and the event went terribly, tragically, embarrassingly wrong. I feel like David and I are two of the only people who ever tried to engineer live events, and so he's one of the only other people that appreciates the distinct pleasure of trying to troubleshoot why the equipment isn't working 5 minutes before the event starts. David, I want you to know that even though you don't like doing live events, just know that those were my favorite moments when the two of us are racking our brains together trying to figure out how to get everything working before everyone goes live, and knowing that there's a real possibility, a real pressure that everything could go sideways. Of course, which it did many, many, many times. I appreciate you, man. I'm gonna miss you. Take care.
Well, I think you guys are trying to make me cry. I just can't tell you how much I love Julian, and I miss you too. It was a really fun ride. You know, Julian's absolutely right. I hate live events. They always go wrong. Yeah, you know, that's keep calm and carry on has to be the role and the motto of an engineer who's doing a live event. They are very complicated. They're logistically complicated. They're creatively complicated. And actually, I think that's the thing that we've never quite mastered in UC3P, unfortunately. It's still a place for us to show an excellent amount of growth. Would be to do live events and to make the live event not just technically seamless, which is what in big part Julian is talking about. You know, when you have all these wireless mixers and microphones, and I have to tell you, we did a fantastic job in terms of administrative level and funding, financing, buying the equipment, installing the equipment, getting it all to work. And we've done really good technical live events since then, even with things that go wrong. But to make a live event that is truly captivating and people are laughing from the bottom of their stomachs, their diaphragms, and crying and enjoying that in a way that I think, especially in this time of COVID, we really miss live events in a way that I think we're going to appreciate when we come back from this. For us to do a live event on that scale, of that level, that people remember it and they talk about it for years after that live event, that would be something that I'm really looking forward to. And I hope one day I get invited as